Good morning. Uh, I'm Robert Toh, and my YouTube channel is Tiger Ace. So I'll be presenting on the difference between the 1942 battles of defenders. So there were two significant battles that involved the defending side in 1942. So the first one was the Battle of Singapore, and the second one was the defense of Rzhev salient. So the defense of Rzhev salient took place under Operation Mars. So both Singapore and Rzhev, they were fortresses. Fortresses in the sense that the defending sides, they were expecting a major offensive against them, and they had spent maybe a few months or a few weeks to prepare for the incoming attacks. So there were fortifications built and everything. So the defenders of each battle, the first one was Operation Mars. So Operation Mars was the defenders were the Ninth Army under General Walter Model. So Walter Model was eventually promoted to Field Marshal, but I believe at this point he was still a general. Then for the attacking side, it was the attack of the attacking side. The Rzhev salient was attacked by the Western Front and the Kalinin Front. So the Western Front, basically the Western Front in Soviet military organization, front was considered an army group. So the Western Front was under Ivan Konev. So Ivan Konev, he was in charge of attacking the eastern face of the Rzhev trapezoid, while the Kalinin Front was under Pukayev. I think I pronounce it as Pukayev. So he was attacking the northwestern part of the Rzhev salient. And for the fall of Singapore, the defenders were the Malayan Command under Lieutenant General Arthur Percival. So the Malayan Command was the British Commonwealth troops that were in charge of the defense of the Southeast Asia holdings, as well as India and Burma. And the attackers were the 25th Army under Tomoyuki Yamashita. So this is the photo of the surrender of the British Army in Singapore. So I think where's Lieutenant, I think Arthur Percival. Okay, the Lieutenant General Arthur Percival, I think he was in the center, the guy wearing the black uniform. So they were walking towards the Japanese HQ because they want to surrender. So this photo was the Ninth Army General Walter Model. So Walter Model was this tall guy talking to this soldier that was in front of him. He was talking to the shorter soldier in front of him. So this was General Walter Model. He was the one in charge of the German defenders in the Rzhev salient. So Ninth Army, what were the three factors for its success? So first one was the intelligence. So if you go to page 40 of David Glan's book, so there was this formation of Metz. So Metz reported the arrival of 110 new tanks in Soviet 20 Army sectors across the Vazuza River, and later 2 fresh Russian divisions had arrived in these and other critical sectors. So effective intelligence was important in World War II because you need to know where and when the enemy when and where the enemy forces are going to attack. Then you are going to send reinforcement, or you can prepare your own counter offensive. For example, during the Battle of Midway, the Americans they had very good intelligence. They know when the Japanese were planning when and where the Japanese were planning their needs, their offensive at Midway. So they prepared their own carrier forces to ambush the 4 Japanese carrier, leading to a decisive victory on the American part. Okay, then the second factor will be you need to have a good defense strategy. So this was on page 2289 of David Glan's books. So Model played a very key role in achieving a defensive success. So this is the entire paragraph. So the winter battle had made particularly high demands on the German commander General Moder. Before that, let me go back first. Okay, the David Lance book, I think the book was called like Zhukov British defeat. I think it was Operation Mars. Zhukov's British defeat Operation Mars. That was the book title. Okay, then the winter battle had made particularly high demands on the German commander General Moder because it exploded at 4 different locations at the same time. In many cases, he was to blame for the splitting up of the formations and their piecemeal commitment. Moder knew that the soldier fought best in his group and that separation of the unity of the commander and his troops was difficult. However, often the dangerousness of the situation compelled the commitment of units where they happened to be at that time. Intuitively, Moder anticipated the enemy options and undertook the necessary long-term measures. The skillful and timely siphoning of troops from non-active sectors. He surveyed all sectors simultaneously, and the insertion of them into favorable strong points was the secret to his defensive success. The English military historian Liddell Hart wrote, the commander had the amazing capability to collect a reserve from an almost empty battlefield and overcome the situation. So that's the part about the defense strategy. So the last factor will be the strategic or operational depth that the Rzhev salient offer, as well as the important reserve. So the Rzhev salient was a very big salient. I think it was this big. So it was a very big salient. So it was a significant portion of the Eastern Front. So the North Rzhev, which the town of Rzhev, which was located on the northeast of the salient to Bai, which was located on the southwest of the salient. The distance from Rzhev to Bai was 118.9 kilometers. So you look at this diagram from Rzhev to Bai. It was 108.9 kilometers. So if you compare this vast distance to the size of Singapore was only like 50 kilometers from the eastern coast to the western coast. That was the 50 kilometers was the longest distance you can travel in Singapore. So the Rzhev salient is like the longest. The distance of Rzhev was at least the distance within the Rzhev salient was at least twice that of the longest distance in Singapore. So when you have like sufficient strategic depth, that means you have a lot of area to retreat, and you can plan your counter offensive in like local areas. And also the number of Soviet troops were insufficient. They only have 2:1 advantage over the German defenders. So when you have such a large salient and you have not enough troops to like concentrate your breakthrough points, then it's very hard for you to achieve like decisive victory over the enemy defenders. But also the timely arrival of the reserve. So like Army Group Center Commander von Kruger as well as Walter Moder, they knew the importance of having operational reserve, because having the timely arrival of reserves can frustrate enemy advances. The defenders knew this, the attackers knew this as well. Hence, both sides prepared reserve for their own purpose. For the Soviet attacker, they deployed the second echelons as operational reserve to either exploit a tactical breakthrough or help pushing it. So for the German defenders, they sent armored reserves to prop up dangerous sectors that could threaten entire front if undermined completely. So the important reason is like you need to know like where was the enemy main effort. So because usually the enemy main effort will target certain cities or towns that will have huge like operational or strategic repercussion on the entire front. So that's where you need to send your reserve to plug in that gap so that you can like stabilize the entire front. Then for the enemy side, for the attacker side, they also need reserve, because they need to know which because they need to know which divisions was making significant headways in breaking through the enemy lines. Then you send your reserve in that direction so that you can further exploit that success and continue to like, basically you're just going to whatever success you have, you're going to compile it until you eventually like achieve an important like victory. So as defeat loomed in the south, the tremors could be felt in Smolensk. OKH had queried the Army Group Center staff about possible movement of reserves from the central sector to the south should the crisis there worsen. The Army Group staff, backed by von Kluge, objected, noting the already well-established threat in their sector. If we could barely hold in August, which was referring to the previous Soviet offensive against the Rzhev salient, said von Kluge, what shall we do in November or December without critical operational reserve? So the reserve actually helped to save the German defenders in operational mass. So let's compare the defense to the fall of Singapore. Which was a humiliating defeat for the British because they surrendered to the enemy forces, which was like maybe 1/3 of their size. So why did the British lose despite heavily outnumbered the Japanese, while the outnumbered Germans won against the Soviets? So 3 factors: bad intelligence. So there were Japanese spies in Singapore, especially even during the pre-war period. There were Japanese spies in Singapore, like this guy, Mamoru Shinozaki. And the British were also a bit complacent. They were a bit complacent, and they have a very good plan to occupy, I think, Thailand. But because of certain I think there was certain consideration, they didn't do that. So the Japanese were able to form an alliance with Thailand and use their ports to basically they used Thailand as a base to launch their invasion of British Malaya. So there were bad intelligence on the British side, and they were very complacent because there were like racist stereotypes against the Japanese. So they think that that Singapore could be easy to hold. And there was also bad defense strategy. So if you go and read on Wikipedia, there were a lot of reason why the defense strategy of British were not good. For example, they didn't concentrate their forces in the right area. I think because after the Japanese captured Johor Bahru, they had a choice to attack the eastern side or the western side of Singapore. They were planning where to land their forces because the British destroyed the causeway, which was the link between British Malaya and Singapore, but they destroyed the causeway. So the Japanese were planning certain beachhead at the northern coast of Singapore. So there were the northeast and the northwest coast of Singapore. So I believe the Japanese were able to trick the British. The Japanese were able to trick the British as to where their main effort was. But Singapore also has very tiny land space, which means there was very little operational and strategic depth, and there was also lack of reserve because the British prioritized their own country defenses over Singapore. So there were no Spitfire, only Hawker Hurricanes to contest the air with the superior fighters. And even so, the Air Force was very small in number, probably 10 Hawker Hurricane, that kind of number. And there were more powerful Commonwealth troops in Middle East and North Africa against Rommel, like the 1942 Battle of Chobuk. So I think Lieutenant Arthur Percival, he actually wrote a book about the reason why he think the Battle of Singapore was a failure. Let me see. Okay. Let me know what you think. But Arthur Percival, he wrote a book about why he think Singapore lost. I think he did talk. His defenders, such as Sir John, had argued that underfunding of Malaya defences and the inexperienced, under-equipped nature of Empire Army in Malaya, not Percival leadership was ultimately to be blamed. So his leadership was very controversial because many people blame him for the defeat, but he also wrote a book to defend himself. So where is the book? I think he culpability for the fall of Singapore. His greatest mistake was to receive the building of fixed defence in either Johor or North Shore of Singapore, dismissing them in the face of repeated requests to start. So defences were barred left from around. He also insists on defending the northeastern shore of Singapore most heavily against the advice of the Allies Supreme Commander in Southeast Asia, General Sir Archibald Weber. He was perhaps fixed on his responsibility on his defense of he was defending the Singapore naval. He also spread his forces thinly around the island and kept few units as a strategic reserve. When the Japanese attack came to the west, the Australia 22 2nd Brigade took the brunt of the assault. He refused to reinforce them as he believed that the main assault would occur in the northeast. So the attacking Japanese were down to the last of their ammunition when Percival surrendered. So besides surrender, he also consulted his own officer. So I think after Percival, so Arthur Percival actually wrote his book. He actually wrote a book. You can read this if you feel like it. So he has like certain like so this there was a lot of you can read this but it's very interesting Okay so I'll stop now. So if you like my video, please like and subscribe. Thank you.